Okay, so I was just saying that basically, as we have just finished our master's degrees, a lot of the critique of psychology today is that so much of it has focused on what is wrong and very little of it has focused on what is right. When I did my undergrad back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I loved psychology. It's what I wanted to do, but I felt really disillusioned because it didn't represent what I thought it would have done. Maybe if I'd stayed in it, I would have been part of that wave of change, but it was something that I was like, that's kind of disappointing that this is the way they're looking at things. I wonder if because we're so focused on treating depression, it's like everything is deficit focused, really, like looking at what's wrong and how to fix it rather than seeing what might be right and good and how to increase that in a person's life.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's like language that's used as well. Like even the fact that deficit is part of ADHD and
And disorder with
yeah,
ASD, right?
yeah, I was about to say the use of the term disorder, which I think a lot of people are trying to replace with condition now. Like autistic spectrum condition, not disorder, because disorder implies that there is something wrong when actually it's not. It's just a difference. I've always felt like that with a lot of mental health conditions and the names for them as well, personality disorders. And actually, you could argue, like, by definition, yes, like the whole fact it is a condition to be diagnosed means that there is something that makes the person stand out from the average person. But people tend to focus on the traits and symptoms people have and not why they have it in the first place, like not really what's happened in the past to get them from A to B. And this is why I love Dr. Gabor Mate, and I don't know if we've ever had this conversation, or I might have said it to you outside of podcasting, but his book, and the name escapes me, but his book about ADHD was what kind of first introduced me to the idea of that I really relate what he's saying. He goes into the fact that his belief is that ADHD is actually an adaptation to the environment and not having needs met as an infant. So the nervous system and the brain rewires itself to adapt to the conditions, and that's what creates this weird and wonderful, and I say weird, you can see I'm like smiling about it because it is. It makes us hypervigilant, it makes us great in emergencies, so responsive and reactive to stuff because it's of how we've grown up and been taught that we need to be. Obviously, it can cause a lot of difficulties because of it. But the point I'm trying to make is he's saying that this is a condition that can go all the way back to when you're old enough to even start developing properly. And I think it's the same with a lot of other conditions. Most of the research about autism is that you are born with it, so it's not developed, it's you just have a brain that is. When we're looking at, I guess, mental health and things like that, and where have they come from, why has that come from? Like, things have come in place to create that, and I think that's something that gets missed a lot. People focus so much on the crime and the person as a criminal rather than actually, if we can unpick and dissect and look into how that person ended up committing this crime, like what led to that. If you look at addiction, right? Addicts, because of something horrendous that has happened to them as a child. But people who don't get that just see the addict and they get tarred with this brush of someone who's like chosen to get into that. And no one chooses that. I don't think anyone sits there and goes, but yeah, it really, I think we do need to put more energy into not looking at the symptoms or the traits or the event, but like the cause, because then we can prevent it in people in the future.
And there's so many different ways to intervene in these different areas, right? We're in the middle of this global mental health crisis, and there are so many people seeking mental health care that are actually neurodivergent, and they are starting on the cycle we've spent a lot of our adult life going through until somebody identified, hey, I think I know what the issue is here, and I know how to not fix it, but help you control it,
Yeah.
improve your daily life with different tools and things, right? And you finally like, oh, this is great. But before that, you touch on something really good, like that trauma and how much trauma we hold on to in our bodies, in our brains, in ways that we don't understand within our nervous system and things like that. And they do rewire our brain and they rewire our hormones, and all of those environmental factors are super important. When you talk about somebody being in prison and discovering their creativity, I was thinking that person finally found a space to rest, even though they clearly done something to belong there. They had energy, talent, skills, whatever it was. The outlet was just not right for them because nobody ever influenced that outlet. The pressure we have put on the mental health system over the years trying to discover what is wrong with us, the pressure we've put on ourselves in lost productivity and exhaustion, in burnout, in masking and things like that, because we couldn't understand why this pill didn't fix it, or this therapy didn't fix it, or like this class in organization and prioritization didn't fix it, or this planner. And with each failure that you go through with this expectation of you should be this, it puts additional pressure on the mental health system. Yeah, but when you look at the prisons, and I think it's the same in the UK too, when you look in the general population of prisons, there's probably a ton of people in there with ADHD ended up taking that criminal pathway. If we
Because,
have better support, diagnostics, encouragement, and hope, we wouldn't be feeding the prisons.
yeah, because fundamentally, what people don't understand is that the brain doesn't care where its source of dopamine comes from. It just wants it. So it will put risk, it will put you in situations that morally you shouldn't be doing or you don't actually want to be doing, but getting that dopamine hit when you have a brain that struggles to regulate it and make enough, your body makes that like survival is life or death. I'm convinced as well, a lot of people, especially like petty crime or like crimes that don't necessarily involve harming other people. I think it's because there's excitement around it, because it's, oh my goodness, what are we doing next? This is risky, blah, blah, blah. I do think you're right. Like, there's more education and awareness and access to diagnoses and understandings before, it would prevent a lot of that. But
And a lot of
hopefully one day.
trips to different therapists and trials of medications, right? It's kind of like getting to that thing that works quickly. When you do that, you learn earlier about the rest cycle, the importance of taking care of yourself, because you start to observe what feeds you and what drains you, what activities give you energy and what activities steal your energy. I know something really important for you and I is actually exercise is rest to us,
Mhm.
right? I feel fulfilled and peaceful and good when I've exercised. And I know that you're big into that as a kind of resting.
Think it's almost mindful because your brain is focusing on what you're doing. It's not thinking about the rest of the day and what happened with this person 10 years ago. It's literally like, I'm trying to lift half my body weight. This is a lot of hard work. I need to focus on my form. Emotion is energy in motion. So if you've got a build-up of stress or anxiety, it's really helpful to release that, plus the endorphins you get. I did a psychoeducational group back in August where one of the sessions, exercise was a big part of it. And one, you guys need to be looking at exercise almost as medicine, like it's as important as insulin to a diabetic, because that is how helpful it is for the brain throughout the day, which is so true. I even look at how I am a few hours afterwards, even halfway into the day after doing something in the morning. I feel more focused, less jittery, less fidgety, less restless, and generally a bit more like my emotional regulation's a little bit more stable. I'm probably less likely to get wound up at something that could have really me up had I not done. When I said about looking for dopamine and other things, I know for a fact, right, and I used to think that this was self-sabotage, but sometimes I have done things that I wouldn't necessarily choose to do if I was rested and content overall, because I've almost needed that as a break from everything else. For example, I know it's quite common that self-medication, particularly through alcohol, is also very with autism as well, because I find it really helps with social anxiety for me. But yeah, I notice I'm not getting enough rest in other areas if I then choose to go out and probably drink more than I usually would, because that's almost forcing me to have a break. There's one way you're going to forget about it. So, yeah, I guess that's another spin on it. Doing the things that are genuinely good for you to get rest, you end up finding it in unhealthy and unsustainable ways.
That is a really good call out on point. And yeah, it's that addictive behavior is self-medicating, right? So it's like the saying, the devil makes work for idle hands, and it absolutely does. If we're sitting there in an empty room bored, then our brains are going to find us a job to do, and it may not be in our best interest, right? It
Yeah.
might end up being a total calamity. Although the older you get, obviously, the more control you have over those things, and you can practice mindfulness and waiting and things like that. But when you're younger and your hormones are racing and you're trying to figure out how to satisfy that itch in your brain and that feeling of like, I haven't found the thing I belong to yet or belong in yet, it drives you to make decisions sometimes that you might not normally make. And then you're absolutely right as well. Like, you choose alcohol and you end up drinking a little bit too much, you're groggy the next day, you might not make the best decisions for yourself again. It's like that knock on
Yeah, it's a
effect.
domino.
And then it's a very quick spiral back downwards into a very unrestful place. Something that I'm picking up from this conversation that I think is kind of important is that we're talking about these abstract situations that we put ourselves in that take our rest away from us, right? Versus the things that we can do that may not be sleeping, because we think of sleep being 8 hours, which is super important. Rest can be lots of different things, right? It's more about being able to be mindful in those moments. Like when you're exercising, understanding the connection between your body, your mind, and what it can do, and expanding beyond that, right? If you're cleaning, I used to really resent cleaning. Now I see it as a meditative practice. I can be mindful, think about the things I'm grateful for while I'm cleaning my space. I can honor myself by cleaning my space. I make it more of a practice of gratitude than a chore that I've hated doing since I was a kid. I think there's lots of daily things we do that we give ourselves negative energy about. It's like the phone call we don't want to make because we're terrified of what's going to happen, even though something's just going to get sorted out and we're going to be like, oh, that was easy.
I think I know where you're going. I end up taking a negative route into rest because I'm not doing it enough in the daily things. I'm not finding it in pockets where I could. People say all the time, if you don't pick a time to rest, your body will choose for you. And obviously, I've been for this is coming up to 3 weeks now. I'm a lot better now since they said about the sinus infection. I've been treating that. But the fact that I even got a sinus infection on top of what I had is a reflection of the fact that I haven't been looking after myself properly. My immune system is not as good as it has been previously, and because I'm burnt out. So everything is worse because, and again, that's the importance of, like, I probably should have, when I had what I suspected was COVID, taken time off work. But I was more worried about, oh, but then all this stuff I'm going to have to come back to, and like things aren't going to get done. So I pushed through. I've made myself worse because of it. Whereas if I'd have taken that time at the beginning to rest, I probably wouldn't be sat here with a sinus infection 2 weeks later. I don't know if you knew this. There's 7 types of rest, which I found out recently. Yeah, it's like the physical. So yeah, sleeping, napping, or like any sort of bodily relaxation, meditation, mindfulness kind of can fall into that. And some overlap anyway. Then there's mental, emotional, sensory, spiritual, social, and creative.
Yes.
So that's really interesting because for me, when I realised that there was that many and what they incorporated, a lot of the things that were rest for me, I didn't realise were until, like, for me, sensory rest. An example would be sitting in a dark room with nothing happening. I love going to the cinema because it's like 2 hours where no one can reach me. I can't look at my phone. I can't get distracted by anything else. I'm forced to look at this screen and what is going on and focus on it. If I'm not absorbed in the film, which rarely happens, to be honest, because I know what I'm into from a trailer if I'm going to like a film. So I already know before I go that I'm going to love this film and I'm going to be absorbed in it for 2.5 hours. So for me, that's sensory rest because I've got one thing to focus on and I have to sit still. And yes, I like usually have a drink and snacks and stuff, but genuinely, most of the time, I escape into this film and I love it. So it's a form of rest for me. Some people, that's their idea of hell, but for me, it's great. It gives me emotional rest because I feel, and this I think is more to do with my autism than anything. So quite often I have alexithymia, which for those who aren't like well versed on kind of psychological terms, basically it means sometimes I struggle to access or explain or put into words or even know how I'm feeling in any given moment. So someone could even give me a wheel with emotions with different things and I still couldn't tell you what I'm feeling off that wheel because I don't know. Films, and I don't know if it's the way that the story is, the emotions that the actors are showing, because I don't know them, so I'm detached, or a mixture of the music, but they allow me to release whatever in a safe environment, because I usually go on my own. That's the reason I like going on my own as well, because I feel like it's a safe space for me to cry, laugh, process whatever I feel about what's going on, which then actually links back to my own life. I learn a lot more from stories and metaphors. Oh, this story is literally written and made up by someone, but these situations could happen in your life. This is how you felt processing that, so you can learn from that and then put it into your own. For me, it ticks like loads of boxes, and I didn't even realise till I learned about that. That's what it was doing. Is there anything for you where you're like, it's not really a standard type of rest, but it is for you?
There's a few things. I just want to make sure I've got the right terminology here.
It's all right.
But what you're talking about is a psychoanalytic term called sublimation. It's a defense mechanism where someone unconsciously channels unacceptable urges or impulses into socially acceptable or often productive activities. Why can't there be
Mm,
positive
mm.
sublimation too? Instead of acting on harmful impulses, a person might channel aggression into a sport or channel sexual energy into artistic
Ah,
expression, right?
yeah.
So somebody like Tarantino, so you might look at Quentin Tarantino's movies as being sublimation of his impulses because he can't carry them out in life. He expresses them in the movie, right?
Mm.
But you can also sublimate your feelings and emotions through that. So I'm just wondering if it's a type of sublimation where you would go to the movies and you're feeling through those characters and processing through them rather than processing for yourself. It's like making the movie and the characters the container for your emotion. And then by the end of the movie, they're giving it back to you in a
Yeah.
palatable way that you can process.
Yeah, maybe. It, consciously, I've never gone to watch a film and gone, "Oh, I want to see this because I know it's going to allow me to do that." Like, it's always about interest, about what the film is about. I knew it was going to bring up that stuff for me. It's not that I wouldn't have felt comfortable, because it depends who I would have gone with. I probably would have gone with someone that kind of knew that anyway. But I feel like I'd have been doing myself a disservice not giving myself that space and time to process it in my own way. Films quite often, ones that are quite deep and quite heavy in touch and things like that, I think about them for days afterwards, and I almost indulge in it and I enjoy it, and it's therapeutic for me to do so for lots of different reasons. But I almost feel like if someone was there with me, it would ruin it, take away from that experience that I like so much, even if it's not in the nicest of ways, if that makes any sense. It's just experience.
Absolutely.
I don't want to share it.
Absolutely. I know tons of people that like to go to movies by themselves for different reasons. I find walking restful. I find climbing restful. I find being outside restful. I don't love washing the dishes, but I find it peaceful when I'm cleaning my apartment properly. It feels like the space is lighter and things are working nicely. Yeah, I just find rest in being able to wander freely and not have commitments and not have to rush to places. I get overwhelmed when I have too many commitments and then I don't feel rested. Beats and
Yeah.
music. And that's what I loved back in the day, right? There's so many people that are neurodivergent that don't like crowds, loud noises, bright lights, and things like that, but they absolutely love going to the club, to a proper club, feel on top of the world. All I've done is move my body, but that is rest for me. I freaking love comedy. Brian likes to listen to myths and legends and watch Tony Robinson doing like excavations and shit, which we've obviously grown up watching in school and our whole lives learning about our history. So I will put on YouTube, I'll go to one of the comedy things that I follow, like dry bar comedy or individual comedians. I just love to watch their comedy and laugh. And I love going to comedy clubs. I love going to shows. That is another way for me to rest because there's nothing funnier than laughing the stupid shit that life throws at you. I just think it's the only
Yes.
way you can get through life is by making a joke of it, no matter how dark that joke is. Or if it's about you or a situation you've been in, make the joke and make it as dark as you need to help yourself cope with the trauma.
Yeah, I agree. I'm actually going to a comedy show next Thursday, pun intended. I think it's a really good situation for me because I've in the past, oh God, I feel sorry for the people who get picked on. And I'm like, now bring it. Actually, what's the worst you can say? I know you're doing it to get laughs, and it's not about me personally. If I was the target of a joke, it's just because I happen to be where it's really easy, and it would be whoever was sat in that row. So that would be quite interesting, actually, if that does happen. Because I'm always looking at ways to deal with the, now I know what RSD is. The reason I feel like this is because of me. It's not what's happened, not the person, it's not what's been done or said. It's my reaction to it and learning how to manage and regulate that. So now it's almost like if I put myself in situations where that could happen, it's then what's the worst that can happen? We've done that now.
Yep.
So,
And I think that's a great place for us to end for today. This
yeah.
has been a really fun conversation of twists and turns, but we did keep getting back to the point, right? Which is rest isn't a list of 10 things that your employer is going to give you because they feel responsible for piling on and it looks good on LinkedIn. Rest isn't always sleep because that's a different thing in and of itself. Rest really is what you make it, and then maybe mundane tasks that you have to do on a daily basis that you can change your lens on. And instead of looking at them as a chore or a job or something, you can kind of look at it as a time to relax your mind and play your favorite music and dance around while you're cleaning. And it's also how you choose to fill your time and the people you choose to fill it with, and how that helps to support you and make you feel about yourself, what's going on in life, and all of those things. So I think we've had an amazing conversation.
Definitely.
We hope to see you all
Great.
next time.